So I have Andrew from vTraffic. I have Morton from Gracenote. I have Michael from ForgeRock, Alexander from Continental, and Abraham from Ford. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. I'll probably take the last seat. All right, lovely. So not getting too deep into the introduction side of things, I'm going to start off with a very generic stuff, which I would say that, what exactly do you think is going to be the next car that you're going to own? And there might be multiple angles when you think of it. You could own it, you could share it, and possibly in 10 or 15 years from now, you could be buying miles or number of minutes for anything that we are going to talk about here. So my main agenda here with the panelists today is to understand how the user perceives content inside the car with respect to experience. Right from the hardware side of things, there are displays, systems, artificial intelligence, everyone is talking about it, to the content perspective. So I'm going to start off with probably asking Andrew to give a little bit of introduction and set the theme with how do we perceive today's angle towards customer experience, and what are the challenges really in the industry, and how are we going about answering it? Are we really fast? Are we really slow? Let's take it to Andrew.
So, actually, I was thinking about HMI this weekend because I had to change the clock on my car. Do you know that hour change that we had? And I ended up finding I needed to do it twice. Once for the clock in the instrument pack and once for the clock in the navigation system. This might not sound very exciting to you guys, but it's understanding where we're starting from before we can define how we're going to build the bridge to where we want to go to. So, if you want to dream of Star Trek and personalized interfaces, let's remember that right now, car makers are struggling with a fundamental problem of diversity. They're having to build a platform for India, South America, China, where most of the cars won't have navigation. They may have a radio. They'll have a clock. But trying to build an integrated, personalized HMI with a scalable platform is very difficult to do with the business model and the global market of the car industry today. Maybe autonomous cars are going to be a unique opportunity for the car industry to bring a critical mass of electronics into every car and start to reproduce the experience that people have got used to on their consumer devices.
Absolutely, lovely. To that, I would say, Andrew, a very good beginning to really talk about the clock that you had to adjust earlier last week. Talking about the challenges from automakers, I'm going to bring in Abraham, and I'm going to ask him to throw in some light on what exactly are we doing here, Abraham. So obviously, there's a lot about standardization. We are looking at global stuff, global architectures, platforms, and we say that there are new technologies which are popping in. We have the Audi A8, probably the BMW 7 Series, but this is not consumed globally on a mass number. And when I talk about customer experience, it has to be someone who's buying an A-segment car to probably a luxury car. So how exactly do you perceive this market, and what exactly are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think Andrew should have bought a Ford. There's only one clock, and it automatically updates. So I think you'd have been better off with a Ford Mustang, I think. I mean, I could see you in one, convertible GT, yellow, definitely yellow, driving down the road. But we don't live in a one-size-fits-all world anymore, right? We are all from various backgrounds, from different cultures. We all have different tastes. And really, if you pull out your phone and look at your home page or your start screen on your phone, we're all different. We've got different backgrounds, different apps, different settings, different preferences. And yet, when we talk about the interiors of vehicles, we're talking about how do we connect our customer in our vehicle similar to how they're connected to their smartphone? Because more and more, that's what customers want. They want that experience that they have, that fast, intuitive, quick, at your fingertips kind of experience that they have with their smartphone. They want in the vehicle, and they want that experience to be as intuitive and as quick and as relevant as they have experienced on their smartphone. And that's the challenge. And you're right, we don't certainly have a platform. Everyone seems to be building their own platform. But I think OEMs together need to come together and find a standard where we can provide customers with choice, with flexibility, but relevance. And relevance not just relevant to them, but within context, so that it's appropriate for them at the right time, at the right place.
Absolutely. Thank you, Abraham. And probably I'll follow it up with Alexander here from Continental with us, because these are the companies which enable automakers to be in this space, the building blocks of automakers. And when you, coming from a background of interiors, how do you see this evolution? Because we see a lot of legacy, we see a lot of changes happening. There might be gaps. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest next steps we will see is really bringing the context into the HMI. If you think about the vehicle today, you have a lot of knowledge about the in a premium or at least medium class vehicle, you have a lot of knowledge about the vehicle environment with radar sensors, camera sensors, with navigation system, which road you're on, which are the other road users, if you will. You know a lot about the vehicle itself. If it's an electric vehicle, you know the range, you know the power, you know maybe the state of the vehicle. And then it comes to the user. Right now, this is a big white spot. You don't know anything about the user in the car. It can be a fresh driver, 17 years old, first car, first time driving this Ford Mustang GT, or it can be someone driving this car for 10 years, not like recent model, but the kind of car, and he's very much used, a very experienced driver, and you give the same HMI to both of them because you just don't know who's in the car. And today you cannot separate it because even if you have two keys, you can still give your key, you can maybe personalize a key, but you can give the key to someone else. So the car still cannot really build on you as a person in it. So now take this context of understanding who's inside the car with technologies like interior monitoring systems, which really understand the driver, not only the person, but the state. Is he distracted? Is he looking to the left? Is he looking to the right? And bring that together into context with all the other information you have in the car. It's a windy road, it's winter time, it's icy, it's the first time that you're driving that car. Maybe that's not the right time for a Facebook or Twitter tweet, right? But if you're a very experienced driver and you have maybe ACC on an Autobahn and lane steering support, whatever, that's a time when you get bored. Yes, that is a pretty good time to do something to the driver that he doesn't, sleep away, right? So this kind of topics we will see now, and why only do we see it now coming one after the other? Because technology in the car becomes affordable and in a mass market available so that we can really build on that. Just looking back, if you build a car that lasts 15 years, you could not build on any technology like connectivity and say, it only works when I have connectivity. Then for most of the people, this car would have been useless most of the time. So we need to keep that in mind, that really now with connectivity and these other technologies, displays, interior monitoring system, now we have the chance to really build the next level of HMI.
Right. Thank you so much, Alexander. We spoke about, I'll circle back on the point where you said we don't know really who's sitting inside the car. And with this, I'll bring Michael in, and probably he could throw in a little bit of light from his end on what exactly do we perceive as a content.
Thank you, Krishna. For those who don't know Fortrock, so we are a global software company working in the identity, access, and relationship management for people, devices, and things. And building what Alexander said, I believe if you want to build a very personalized service into your connected car, you have to focus your whole scenario around trusted identities. And if we talk about trusted identities, we don't just talk about the person driving the car. We talk about the car itself, which has an identity. So, and if you want to deliver services to a car, I believe you would be very interested to see, is the person sitting in the car really Michael? Or is it somebody else? So can I deliver the service? Or if a car is using the service for you, passing something and buying stuff, or you want to download an app to the car, or you want to deliver something into a trunk of a car. We heard that this morning from Volkswagen, that they want to build a service delivering into a trunk. You better make sure that this car is a car, it's as it is, you know. So therefore, if you try to build services around connected cars, it's all starting with trusted identities. And if you do that, you can then easily do the personalization, you know. If you have 5 people in the car, or if your family has 6 people driving the same car, you can then ask the car, if your daughter is driving, that this car only goes 120 kilometers, the radios only go to 3 and not to 9, and those type of things, you know. But you have to do that. There's another topic which is important. You need to do all of that with privacy in mind. You know, we all know the things coming up next year, GDPR. So everything we are doing and we are building in the car has to fulfill what is coming in May next year, the rule that everybody in the car has to consent that they share the data. So there are many topics around personalization, but it needs to start with a clear identity of a thing, of a car, and of the human being driving the car.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I must say, you know, I would say when personalization, it's something which is very personal to me. And when I sit inside the car, the first thing that comes to my mind is music. And this is where I bring Mortem in. And I need to know a little bit about the equalizer that I came across early this morning, that there's so much of things that, you know, small little things when you sit inside a car, probably, the album cover, what exactly could be the lyrics, what exactly is the time remaining. All of those small little elements do add that touch to your interiors. And this is where I would like to, you know, include Morten into the discussion and ask his views on what exactly does he perceive as content.
Yeah, thank you. So in general, what I heard is lots of good input to that topic of media and content consumption in the car. Because in fact, it is one of the key use cases or differentiators that we all envision for what will be the autonomous car or self-driving car, where people say that media consumption is the thing that you can do then with a self-driving car. So there's much more time, much more ways to consume media, videos and music, of course, and other sources. And in fact, what we are seeing is that more and more sources of content come into the car with each of the technologies that we mentioned here. And with connectivity, indeed, we have much more ways to get access to more sources. Traditionally, we had the radio and we had the CD, and in future we will have streaming services. We will have video on demand and all these kind of things in the car. And then, of course, it is the question about usability and user experience. I go back to what you said earlier, that the user expects that he will have the same experience on a in the car than on a smartphone. However, we know that in the car there are specific challenges and expectations in terms of safety and distraction, and it probably is also something that we all know needs to be a lean-back experience, not just for the driver but also for other people in the car. So it is very, very important that we solve the problems of ease of use and convenience in the car. And going back to your example with the clock change, I think if we go to very simple examples that we know are working or not working right now, we can take it from there. So, and to that point, maybe another simple example would be that one that you mentioned, is that, for example, when you listen to music, each track, each piece of music, each song is from a certain genre or type of music, also from a different age, decade or something. And normally what you would want to do with a stereo system is to adjust the equalizer settings for a song. You can't do this in a driving mode. If you're a driver, you cannot switch for every song and adjust the equalizer settings. So what GraceNote does, for example, is a service to offer for each song the equalizer settings that we analyze beforehand, and then send this over the air when you consume the music, so that you can send this adjustments to the onboard equalizer, and it changes it automatically. So it's another example of simplicity, of ease of use, and something that is very specific to the user experience in the car.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. At this point, I would like to circle back to the audience, and probably one of you guys could tell me what exactly would be a personalized next, or should I say future car for you. And we have an OEM, we have a supplier, we have the content guys, we have the industry sitting here. Let's see if they can build that car for you guys or not. So can anyone just pop up and tell me what could really be the future car? What do you really perceive when I say personalized car? Let's see if that's doable by the panelists here. Anyone? I think, oh, it's late in the evening. Anyway, so let me just give an example. Probably, when I say personalized car, obviously starts from what Alexander told me. I get inside the car, my seats are set, it knows what media I'm going to play, the autopilot kicks in. There's a lot of stuff, right from the driving aesthetics to the content that I'm going to perceive. So with this regard, I would like to circle right from there, from Andrew, what are the top 5 things or 5 technologies per se? And we say connectivity. Connectivity, let it be a broader bracket. Let's say artificial intelligence, let's say probably machine learning and stuff. What are the top 5 themes that you guys think are going to impact and personalize this car really for me? And I know, Andrew, you want to make things right in the current scenario and probably move on to the next one. But there should be a vision from your perspective. What do you think is the top 5 that you think about?
Actually, I noticed something. When car makers, vehicle manufacturers, want to do something right, they can do it so well. If you want to really have a driving experience, sit in a Porsche 911, manual gearbox, go for it. Nothing better. Perfect weighting combination of pedals, steering, controls. Those guys really loved it and cared about it. Sit inside a Ford. They've got a great top column modules, feeling on the switches, the way the controls work with the steering wheel. It's focus. It's fitted on every vehicle. The problem comes because a lot of the infotainment is optional. I've got a radio on this car. I've got a navigation on another one. Actually, I've got a navigation team here that's working on the display, but I've got another team working on the steering wheel switches and the voice recognition. If we want to get personalized and exciting infotainment execution in the car makers have got to make it as important as the driving experience. And that is something that has not yet happened.
Your thoughts on it, Abraham?
I can't say I truly disagree with you. But I think that there needs to be more of a focus, certainly of the user experience in the vehicle. But if I go back to the question, and I'm not going to quite answer your question, but I think the disruptor in this whole discussion is not today, right? It's about what's going to happen in 3 or 4 years when autonomous vehicle level 5 comes on board, when you don't have distraction anymore. Do we have, I mean, today, if you just look at it, right, everything is geared towards the driver, everything. Is that necessary 5 years from now when level 5 autonomous vehicles comes on board? Is it possible that if all 5 of us were sitting in a vehicle, could have been a Porsche, could have been whatever, that each seat has its own personalized setting? Grace Note could provide individualized information to me that's different from what it's providing to you. Could that be a possibility? I think looking forward into the future, I think this whole paradigm changes because the disruption is big enough to provide individual contextualized information to each person in the vehicle.
Right. Thank you so much. Alexander, your thoughts on it?
I don't want to concentrate only on the level 5. I think we have enough time to optimize the driver's vehicle as well. And I really see, and maybe that, yes, I also don't disagree to what you say fully, But there's a lot of reasons behind. At the end of the day, if you look into the technology you were able to buy in a car for 15,000, 20,000 euro or dollar, I mean, what's in there? It not only has tires, it has a motor, it has seats, and the infotainment and radio, whatever. It's quite a lot of technology in that vehicle. And to make that price happen and to still earn some money, you basically really try to optimize each and every corner. And now we see really that, first of all, in the industry, there's a change where we see, and I mean, I can speak for us as a tier 1 supplier, but I can also speak for the automotive OEMs, that we take a much bigger system approach, because we see that the innovation hub is not possible on the individual components anymore. If you really want to make a difference, it just, yes, you can optimize still in the many components, but if you want to make a big leap forward, you have to think in systems. You go into end-to-end discussions. You think in epics, you think in user experience, and you involve really the full chain of systems in the car, of cloud services integrated and all that, and then you find innovations. And that is realized in the industry, and that also provides a lot of energy to say, now let's do a difference. Let's not have one instrument cluster, one other display here, one other display here. Now we, for example, have a system that basically drives several displays on the car, but is one ECU behind, virtualized, so it has safe component, it can have very dynamic components like Android operating system even running on it. And then you can have a seamless user experience across different displays in the car. You can utilize the power of more CPU and RAM to have more functions, to have functions updated over the air, over lifetime. So everything becomes possible now, and really we see that affordable as well, and you see that the industry is really changing towards a system perspective.
Absolutely. Michael, your thoughts?
So, I agree with Alexander in a certain sense. Let me give you one example from our industry. One of our customers, TomTom. We know them from building these devices you put on your car. Really looks really old-fashioned. These guys had a really big problem because they have been disrupted through digitization. And they moved on to a journey. And really today, these guys are nearly a pure digital company. You can sit in the morning at your iPhone or Samsung, whatever device, and you say, I want to go here and there. You do your stuff for the car. You go to the car is ready, and you go. Those type of things. So I believe there are steps in between which we can deliver today, and there is a big thing if we don't have drivers. What are the technologies, I believe? Building what I said, if you understand what the person in the car is doing, because you know the person through identity, you feed that back, you feed the data back. What did he do? What did he listen to? What did he stuff? And you put that into your data warehouse, you run AI on it. So I believe that AI, that learning is important in the context of really all that stuff. And then you can provide a better service because next time you know more about the person, you know more what's happening in the car. So I believe personally AI is important, but it's all in the context of other technologies delivering content into the car.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael.
I mean, there's also an aspect, I think, that we have not yet mentioned, but it's very important, I think, to in order to improve and enhance context information, we need to have something that is very unique to the car, which is that the car has sensor data. And there's lots of efforts in the industry right now to make this sensor data available, and to even add some more, like face detection, those kind of things, would add up to actually to build the context information, and that is very unique. Right now, if you have a, let's say, a music service such as Spotify, they know already how to personalize your listening experience. They know when and where you have listened to music, and they deliver, the playlist of the week or something, or some specific ones that lead you into the weekend or to your even a journey or to whatever. And they are not very far away from delivering specific playlists also for you while in the car. However, they don't know yet exactly or not much about this situation, this context. If there's some more data that can be made available through the car, then this is something that would add value actually to those kind of services and give you a much more personalized experience while in the car. And since the car is the predominant place and way where you consume lots of media and these kind of things, it is something that the car, that the OEM can really benefit from to make up their own, business proposal.
Right. I'm going to come back to Alexander with a question, because we started off with autonomous cars, and one of the key aspects for HMI, of course, right now is interaction with the system, but we are talking about an autonomous hands-off scenario where I give over the controls to the car. And in that perspective, what exactly do you think is changing? Where exactly are we going towards?
Yeah, again, from our perspective, talking about interior, you basically have a time where there is a mixed scenario. So the driver has times where he's driving himself and where the vehicle is taking over more control or full control. That is to be separated from the path where there is no steering wheel anymore, because then you have complete different interiors. But when you have a mixed usage, then somehow there's also this handover scenario or somehow transfer. And here we see also that the driver monitoring plays a very important role to understand, again, knowing and understanding the user. Is it the first time driving? So do I potentially run into a trust issue? How do I get this person adapted to the highly automated driving? Or is it someone driving quite frequently? And do I run into an issue of getting bored or overtrust? I mean, issues we have seen with Tesla vehicles have been rather issues of overtrust, where people jump onto the back seat or film on YouTube and there's no one sitting on the driver's seat, right? So we have to keep that in mind. And as long as the vehicle is not fully capable of handling all situations, we'll have the driver as part of the system architecture, if you will.
Yeah.
And then we have this handover scenarios, and we need to kind of understand the capabilities and the state of the driver.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alexander. And Abraham, your thoughts of autonomous hands-off, and obviously we spoke about probably the entry of biometric solutions and advanced cameras inside the cars, possibly biograde sensors as well. So how do you perceive it? Obviously, we come from a big end and then probably trickling down to the lower ends. But when we are going to launch a level 3, 4, 5 autonomous car, it has to be enabled with these things so that you ensure everyone is safe. So how do we go about it from your angle?
Yeah, so at Ford, and in all deference to my colleagues here, we believe that level 3 is very difficult to achieve, just because human nature is such that when you're giving control over to the car, if I'm reading a book, I'm watching Netflix, I'm surfing on the web, I'm tweeting, I'm not paying attention. The reaction time for me to re-engage with that vehicle differs between person to person. Age, etc., all make a difference. And so we, Ford, are really not pursuing a level 3 for that reason. In fact, that's the primary reason we're not looking at level 3, is because of the re-engagement strategy is difficult to predict, and it's very difficult then to know, well, who's really at fault? Is it the driver for not taking control of the vehicle, or for the vehicle not telling the driver it was time to take over? And so level 4, level 5, that's where we are, and that's where we're pursuing. We've announced that that's where we're focused on. And certainly that comes, that requires a whole lot of sensors, right? LiDAR, camera, radar, a whole suite of sensors that are looking at not only what's going on outside the vehicle, what's going on inside the vehicle, but also vehicle-to-vehicle communication, so that the vehicle really does know what the other people outside are doing. But when we're talking about the context of interiors, right, when we're talking about contextualized information, right, level 4 and level 5 provide us the ability, once we know who's in the vehicle, right, we can provide them the contact and really personalize that information for the person inside. And now they're not worried about re-engaging with the vehicle. The vehicle knows where it's going. And you're right, we have to learn to figure out how to trust the vehicle, whole different discussion. But I think we can provide really good contextualized information to the occupants in a level 4 or 5 context. In level 3, I'm not quite sure we can get there.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. I think, Annie has already flagged the time. Possibly one last point from each of you, very short and crisp, on what are the changes that you would make as an evolution from personal perspective to the next generation of systems that we could imagine? Just 1 point each.
So I think in the near term, there's going to be this marriage between the brought-in solution, the smartphone, and the built-in solution, the modem. And I think folks like FordRock and others are going to try to help OEMs figure out who is actually in the vehicle and actually who's going to drive that vehicle. And I think that pairing of brought in with built-in is going to help deliver better content that's personalized for the user.
All right. Thank you.
So for me, if you ask me what I wish for, is I don't wish for apps in the car, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
I wish for a seamless experience and integration of the services. So I don't care, to be honest, where the information or the media comes from. I have my service that I use, yes. So I would select, maybe pre-select, saying I like Spotify, I like Gracenote, whatever. But in the vehicle, I don't want to be forced to start the app for Spotify and then start the app for parking, and while I need the app for something else. That is so wrong for the vehicle, so let's not go that path, please.
Right. Thank you so much.
So I believe we in the industry, the first thing, the priority is we should strive for a seamless user experience. Start there, combined with privacy stuff so that you assure all is private. And I believe we should not just think, and you allow that, it's a Ford universe, it's the Porsche, or it's whatever universe. I think the universe is an ecosystem, you know, and we have to start thinking in ecosystems.
Well, I'd say that it would be great, my personal desire would be that car manufacturers pick me up where I am today. So we do have a good user experience, I feel, in cars. And traditionally, going back to your example, you know, clock change or radio use. Yeah, the radio is a use case that is perfectly adjusted to the car and the driver since many decades. And in every car when I go in, I know how to use it. Right? There's 10 preset buttons where I can find or store my preferred radio stations. So this is what everybody, and it has a volume knob. So it's what everybody knows how to do. And I would like to see this also going in the future, that things are very intuitive. And I go in and it just works. And I don't have to dig deep into whatever menu structures to configure things and this and that. It should work just right away. That's absolutely my desire.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Martin. And final point by Andrew.
So, I started with the story about the clock. Sorry, guys, I know. If we want to have some personalized HMI, and if we really want to make things happen, every vehicle manufacturer needs to get away from measuring part numbers and cost control. Because this is about user experience with software and services delivered in an exciting, engaging fashion for the users to benefit from inside the car. And that is not a list of part numbers managed by the finance department and the manufacturing site. But that is how the car industry is organized today.
Thank you so much, guys.